actually give you a pretty good idea of how wide this area is. About 200 feet from building to building, and then if we measure it long ways, it's probably at least a football field from east to west, I would imagine. So essentially we're looking at it, yeah, about 300 feet. So about a football field is what we're talking about here, Mark.
Right, and more on that dispersal order. This reporting from the UCLA Daily Bruin has put out a tweet, or an X, and it says, another dispersal notice from authorities near the encampment could be heard across the lawn of Dixon Plaza, which urged protesters to exit via the pathway between Royce Hall and Kaplan Hall. You risk serious injury, an officer said through a microphone. Again, that quote, you risk serious injury. Between Royce Hall and Kaplan Hall, if they want to exit that pathway, I see there is a pathway that leads down towards Portola Plaza and then ultimately can continue past the physics building and the Portola Plaza building and out of the area. But that's a pretty serious warning from an officer. This according to the UCLA Daily Bruin, which, as we have been reporting, has done really good work here in reporting on and capturing the events that are happening on their campus. So that was dispersal order that we heard just a couple of minutes ago, and this information coming to us at about 12:49 a.m.
And that may very well be what's prompted the helmets suddenly in the last few minutes. Again, that group there, a better view here actually, as we peer under those tents from behind. You can see them taking cover under the tents, but those seem to be the most, I want to say the most male-oriented from what we can tell, and the most able-bodied, fit people in this encampment who are kind of at the front lines. They've taken up position, if you will, in those helmets along the front line there, right behind that plywood wall.
That's on the eastern edge of Dixon Plaza.
That's right.
And these are the people who are manning that plywood wall. On the other side of that plywood wall are the skirmish lines of the highway patrol officers and the police officers just behind them. 4 skirmish lines. We see them. What we're seeing is they've got their riot gear on. Their masks, their plastic shields are up. They're not down over their faces. That would be another thing to look at, look for. If all of a sudden you see the masks coming down, that means something's about to happen.
That's right. And I think it's fairly obvious at this point. You know, again, I keep speaking of this large group of officers that we're expecting to see, and again, where they come from. Again, there's limited options here, but the officers that you see in that skirmish line are far outnumbered. So these would likely not be the initial group to, you know, move forward on this encampment. I imagine that skirmish line will just act as just that, a skirmish line that nobody tries to cross during the actual operation, when we presume that California Highway Patrol will actually make entry into that encampment. Again, how they do that will be methodical, but I think it'll be something of a surprise for everybody, including us, in terms of the method to their operation.
Right, and as you point out, you know, they're not only are they outnumbered, but the heaviest fortification is directly in front of them. They've got the ply now been nailed down. They've got 2 metal barricades, and people in those tents with helmets on, and who knows what else. Well, and so to go directly up against that would seem to be not necessarily the safest and most effective tactic.
For everybody, including us, in terms of the method to their operation.
Are they going to go in with clubs? Are they going to go in with, you know, any of the other things that they have available to them? How are they going to do this? And how they do it will be documented, and it will be discussed and be the topic of discussion and investigation and study for a very long time. The LAPD in particular has had a lot of situations involving crowd control that have gone not so well. And there have been many instances over the years where they have had to revise their tactics and admit to some problems with their tactics and the tactics that they employ. And there have been revisions over the years. There are changes in police procedures based on situations just like this, when they were either too heavy-handed or in some instances not forceful enough. It is a delicate balance that they have to walk, and you can bet that after this is done, there will be study by all the agencies involved about how they could have done this better, how they could have been more effective. Even if it goes very, very well, there are going to be some things that they're going to want to look at and see how well they are done. And the best possible outcome is if nobody gets hurt, everybody gets their First Amendment rights respected, and then that's that. We're all waiting to see whether that happens, and the dispersal order.
One of the tools.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah. One of the tools that comes to mind, since we have some free time to speculate at least a little bit. We learned about the distraction detonators that were used in Columbia University last night. Very similar to a flashbang, but completely harmless as far as I know, but definitely effective in terms of forcibly dispersing a crowd without injuring anybody. It certainly seems like one of the tools I would imagine we might see being tossed into the crowd or into maybe some of the open areas within the crowd to kind of divert attention away from where the law enforcement wants their attention diverted to. So, it's tools like that that I can imagine in my head that would come in very handy in a situation like this as they try and penetrate that plywood and try and penetrate that wall. Again, this is a group on the other side of that wall that's equipped with not just helmets. They've got gas masks and all kinds of defensive equipment to deal with tear gas and other sorts of irritants. But a distraction device is very effective, and we've seen it just this week in other locations be used in similar situations that may very well be played out here.
We have some new video that has come into our newsroom that was shot by someone who was within the encampment. Let's see if we can roll that and get a sense of what it looks like inside and what officers potentially could be facing. What you're seeing here, I don't know if you can see it on your screen there in Air 7, but the barricade that is set up outside Royce Hall, they've got these huge planks that have been used to barricade the doors. You've got people there. You see the riot gear that they have on. That looks pretty much like the same sort of riot helmet that police have. This is a person here that's got the riot gear on. You see other people helping to fortify that plywood. And I'm not sure exactly what the bungee cords are for, but that is apparently part of this that's meant to slow down somebody who's trying to get in, I presume. It's not exactly a hard, fast sort of a thing, but it may be effective. Demonstrators and people who are involved in this sort of thing, they learn things too after action. And this is video from earlier in the day of police officers showing up in force with their riot gear as they prepare to do whatever's going to be happening here. This is more video from Royce Hall. Anybody who's visited UCLA, you likely may have walked down this very hallway. And some of the bike helmets that they have, they've got umbrellas, other equipment that they have. I'm just kind of watching this along with all of you to kind of see what sorts of things are going on inside the encampment. And Shayla Girardin joining us now as we look at more of this video. A good large-size contingent of LA police officers here. That this was obviously shot before sundown, and just another indication of all the supplies that have been brought in. Look at all this water. They've got water. We saw the kind of a buffet line over there. A shield with the UCLA logo. I've never seen that before. And here's an indication we were talking too about the organization. That was the medical tent. You saw people suiting up, preparing to take care of people if they were perhaps in need of medical care. Shayla Girardin You are with us now. You heard the dispersal order, is that correct?
Twice, giving that dispersal order, telling the crowd that this protest is unlawful, they need to leave, also telling them where the nearest exit was, and saying they could be arrested if they do not leave quickly. As for now, all they've been greeted with, or the only response they've had to that dispersal order, is the crowd cheering and saying that they were going to stay put. I don't know if you guys can hear the chanting, the shouting behind me, but this crowd has made absolutely no move to leave, even after hearing that dispersal mark several times.
And did the Daily Bruin reported that the one officer said you risk serious injury. Did you hear those words?
I did not hear those words, no, but I have also heard other people out here saying they heard something similar. It's very loud out here, especially with the helicopters flying overhead, the chants, the cheering. So when those dispersal orders come on, again, we've heard them at least twice, it's really hard to catch the whole thing from where we're standing.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of the exit area, they said to go between Royce Hall and Kaplan Hall. I think that's pretty close to your position. Kaplan Hall should be directly in front of you, based on what I can tell.
Yeah.
What's that noise we're hearing?
Very close to where we are standing, and a lot of shouting happening behind us right now. But yes, they were very clear. I want to go ahead and show you guys, since we are getting quite a bit of action from where we are standing. You can see CHP, LAPD all out here in several lines this evening, forming new lines as those protests, those shouts continue to grow. And they have continued to stand here even when we heard those dispersal orders given multiple times. Campus police coming over the loudspeaker, like we mentioned, and giving very specific orders, saying that everyone out here needs to disperse, this protest is unlawful, and giving those specific instructions on where they needed to exit. And like you mentioned, Mark, very close to where we are standing. And as you can see, that crowd out here has made no movement, no effort to leave, and by the looks of it, not planning to leave anytime soon.
Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, you're standing right along where the exit route would be between Royce Hall and Kaplan Hall. Just heading south there. So they would be, presumably, if they were going to leave, they'd be walking right past you, and nobody, it appears, has done that.
No, quite the opposite. Everyone coming back and saying that they have no plans to leave, that they will not be dispersing, that they will not be going. In fact, quite the opposite. We've heard cheers, we've heard chanting, we've heard shouting every time campus police have come on over those loudspeakers. And you can even hear those chants, those shouts continuing out here this evening.
What are they saying in the chanting and the shouting? Can you make it out?
It's hard to make it out. So we've heard, a lot of the same chants, the same rhetoric this evening, but what exactly they're screaming right now, it's been really hard to tell for about the last hour or two, I would say. Sometimes we thought something was happening, that someone was moving, that PD was moving in, the shouts, the chants would really come out of nowhere, but then just as quickly as they start, they often die out again.
All right, and so we're seeing the strobes. Again, the officers behind you, their shields are noticeably up. That means that if, as far as they're concerned, no action is imminent from their perspective, from their position, because if they were, their shields would be down over their faces. That's a basic kind of assumption that I have based on demonstrations that we have seen here over the years. Leanne Suter, are you out there?
We are, Mark. We are still on the outskirts of the crowd here watching what's happening. It's shrunk a little, very little. It's not as large as it was earlier this evening, but having said that, it is still a very large crowd that is here on the outside. As Shayla said, on the inside, folks really aren't leaving. They are sticking around and waiting to see what happens. We've been seeing the strobes going on and off. We hear them chanting. Every once in a while, we'll hear an uproar and some cheering, and there'd be some slight movement, the crowd shifting ever so slightly, but no massive movement, like no sudden movements as if they were moving out of the way or leaving the area. For the most part, it's really just been a holding pattern for everyone, all standing around, watching, waiting to see what was going to happen next. We really haven't seen that change in all these hours that we've been out here tonight. Everyone just gathered together, continuing with their cheering and waiting to see what happens. We keep seeing all the strobes. You can see that. I know you guys have been seeing that all night. The flashlights that they're using to kind of flash across the crowd. I don't know, what that means or what that has to do with anything, but we certainly have seen that going on for some time within the crowd here. But on our end here on the east side of it, which would be again east Royce and the quad here, not much has changed. The crowd just hanging tough here, waiting to see what happens with law enforcement.
All right, and as we watch those strobes and the security folks manning the barricade there, and the people behind the plywood with their helmets and with their masks and their strobe lights, Air 7 is taking a minute to get back to base to refuel, and we're going to take this moment to regroup, and we will be streaming our helicopter live once we get back on station. For now, though, we're going to take a break as we continue to keep an eye on the situation on the campus at UCLA, where a demonstration, an encampment that has sprung up, calling for a ceasefire in the Hamas war, calling for a divestiture of UCLA funding from businesses that do business with Israel and with Israel's military. While we are watching that unfold and the effort to perhaps dislodge it tonight, we're going to take that break and we will continue to update you as events.
Or automated external defibrillator.
One final chance.
It might hang on the wall.
Recent announcement on the megaphone was probably their last opportunity to leave that encampment. I believe a couple of hundred students and non-students still remain in that encampment.
Martha, I don't know if it's possible. I mean, I don't know if you'll be shooed away straight away, but presumably this is not something that police officers really want to have to enforce. Students and being passionate and on campus, and talk to us again. I mean, about the sort of not weapons. Well, I guess weapons. You said ties for hand ties, but what might they use if necessary if these protesters ignore their requests?
Yeah, I think it's very uncomfortable to see such heavily armed police officers, highway patrol officers here on a US university campus. They really are images that are quite difficult to fathom. Just to give you an idea of some of the equipment that they have, you can see the gentleman here with the green sort of, I don't know what you'd call it, a rifle there. That is. Those are rubber bullets, I believe. I'm just coming around to try and see them. Yeah, I think those are rubber bullets that they're carrying there. So they're non-lethal weapons, which could be used. Obviously, the police here are armed. They're carrying batons. These are the LA Police Department officers. So they will come in support of the California Highway Patrol officers, the state troopers who will lead any operation. And those officers have white cable ties, and I've seen them being used over the past week or so. I was at the University of Southern California, around 10 miles from here last week, when almost 100 students were arrested. I saw young men and women tackled to the ground on that occasion. I think these are scenes, obviously, that these officers would want to avoid this evening, but they have warned students and non-students inside this encampment that they do risk serious injury if they don't leave.
Martha Kellner, great coverage as always. Thank you very much. And we're going to go back to Martha if at any point we do see those things escalate again and the police move in on protesters. And in the meantime, if you want to stick with watching those latest live pictures, you can scan that QR code on your screen right now, or visit the Sky News website. But we're going to move on with news closer to home now, and grieving parents on.
extinguish every single coal-fired power plant, no matter how much life is left in that plant. Many of them are older plants. It also will make it nearly impossible to build a new natural gas-powered power plant. So we have an administration who's telling us to drive electric cars. We've got AI coming on. We've got data centers coming on that are huge consumers of power. And this administration is saying, but you can't have baseload power that provides, 30, 40% of your power if you combine both of those. So we're going to fight this through congressional action, I'm sure. But I'm sure it will be challenged in the courts as the last Clean Power Plan was, and it was defeated in the Supreme Court. This administration continues to overregulate, and last week was an example of their environmental extremism, again, coming after the hardworking men and women in my state and across this country.
The outbreak of anti-Semitism on college campuses across America right now at this moment is reprehensible. This kind of hate has no place in America. And I've got to point out the hypocrisy here. These elite universities, they tout diversity and inclusion as long as Jewish students and Jewish professors are excluded. What hypocrisy that we're seeing at this moment in our country. The First Amendment does protect speech. It does not protect the right to threaten or intimidate Jewish students, much less the violence occurring on campuses. Yet, that is what we're seeing across our country today. So we need to ask ourselves, why are the tax dollars of freedom-loving Americans funding these universities? Let me give you a few examples. Columbia, they breached a building, the Hamilton building, $1.2 billion last year from the federal government. UCLA, where they're using wristbands to identify anti-Israel students, nearly $1 billion. GW, a little closer here to Washington, D.C., where a Palestinian flag now hangs from the statue of George Washington, $200 million of American tax dollars going to that institution. So I have this message to send to President Biden and every single Senate Democrat. Join me, join my Republican colleagues in condemning these violent protests and defund the universities that refuse to crack down.
Good afternoon, and I know Senator Caput alluded to this. When it comes to Title VI and defunding some of these universities, without information from the ground, as you said, Secretary Cardona didn't have people there to understand what the potential violations were of Title VI. How will you go about adjudicating whether School A or School B gets money funded or defunded, and how much money will be?
Well, first, you notice that every one of us today has the same message that you have. Anti-Semitism needs to be dealt with consequences. You've noticed a lot of the bigger donors to some of these schools have said, I think I'll just keep my money. And as several of our colleagues here pointed out, the biggest supply of money comes from us. And so we're taking a look at how to condition that money on how they handle their campuses in situations like this. I know Senator Cotton and others have suggestions systematically today, and we're serious about this. We're going to take a look at what legislatively we might do to deal with this problem. Well, first, I'm relieved, as I think all of America is, that chaos in the House will be discontinued. And so that's, I think, a benefit to our country, benefit to the House, benefit to our reputation.
conservative chaos, he led the way. Now, we're following a busy and successful session. Senate Democrats have led the way in passing the foreign aid package, getting desperately needed funds for our allies across the globe, passing FISA, the reauthorization, and ensuring a vital piece of our national security is protected. So to date, it's clear that Senate Democrats have delivered. Don't take my word for it. Look at the numbers. $866 billion in private investment announced under this administration and under the Senate Democratic majority. Last week, I stood with the president to announce a $125 billion investment in New York and Idaho by Micron, made possible by our CHIPS science law, which we're so proud of. More than $500 billion in direct investments in our infrastructure, in clean energy products, and more. The legislation we've passed is creating historic investments in our communities, real good paying jobs. We're bringing back manufacturing to America, something that people thought couldn't be done. It's fixing our supply chains to lower costs. It's creating jobs in every corner of the country to expand the middle class. And now we're working with our Republican colleagues to get FAA done. Both parties have an incentive to work together to get FAA done as quickly and smoothly as we can, to keep our skies safe, to keep our federal employees well taken care of. And today, I joined Senators Booker and Wyden to introduce the Cannabis Administration and Opportunity Act, a comprehensive and necessary update to the federal government's approach to cannabis. I'm proud to be the first majority leader ever to call for an end to marijuana prohibition. I've seen consequences of the outdated laws and the benefits of common sense cannabis regulation at the state level. Well, it's time for the Congress to follow suit. The states have been the laboratories, and they've shown the success of doing what we're doing. So I'm very proud of the bill we're releasing today. The legislation will finally remove marijuana from the list of controlled substances. And also today, our dear colleague Senator Stabenow introduced the substance of our farm bill. It's vital for the country and rural America. It does a great job at helping rural America. It does a great job at feeding those who need food. And we're going to work doggedly to get it done with all due speed. Senator Murray.
Well, getting our annual funding bills passed and signed into law was not easy. Between that and the supplemental we just passed, we went through endless antics from House Republicans, replacing their own speaker, renegotiating their own spending cap agreement, demanding the inclusion of hundreds of poison pills that were always going to be a non-starter, and rejecting border policies that they demanded in the first place. This political theater created unnecessary delays and came with a cost, with House Republicans threatening the full faith and credit of our country and our global leadership, bringing us to the brink of a shutdown several times over and leaving our allies at war and civilians in need waiting for aid. And at one point, House Republicans proposed cuts that were steep and reckless enough to do real harm to families and communities. It's easy to see the cuts House Republicans wanted as numbers on a spreadsheet. Tens of billion dollars here, tens of billion dollars there. But this is not a spreadsheet to our families. It's child care. It's the bridge that they cross every day. It's whether they can put food on the table.
Who have moved in on this tent encampment. There's been a standoff for the past several hours now. Well, just in the past few minutes, police here have let off a flashbang device, almost like a very loud firework, a distraction technique, as they've launched their operation to dismantle this tent encampment, which has been on the grounds of the UCLA campus for the past week. You may also be able to make out in the background chanting from the pro-Palestinian supporters here. They're chanting peaceful protest repeatedly. I think what we've seen over the past 36 hours is these pro-Palestinian protests morph also into an anti-police protest. We saw yesterday evening, violent skirmishes between pro-Palestinian and pro-Israeli factions, and the police
And
absent,
how would you rate your manager?
For hours as that violence
Get the truth
unfolded.
anonymously
So I
with
think
SurveyMonkey.
you can see the anger at the police reflected here today, which is presumably making their job even more difficult to do. These police officers have warned the students remaining in this encampment, and there looks to be at least a couple of hundred students who have remained in place despite the threat of arrest. Police have told them that they risk serious injury in doing so. I can't see yet whether there have been any forcible actions taken from the police to take down any of these tents, to arrest any of the protesters. But certainly what I did see around 5 minutes ago is a couple of journalists trying to film what was going on. They ended up tackled to the ground, phones smashed on the floor. So certainly the potential for this to result in violence.
Tackled to the ground by the police or the protesters?
I think by the police. I'm not sure whether it was as a result of people rushing up the stairs. I'll just ask Chris, my cameraman, he can maybe just turn round to show you the scene on the other side of these stairs. So there is a metal barrier separating these stairs from the encampment. You can see there a lot of pro-Palestinian supporters, protesters here in support of the students who are in and the non-students who are in the encampment. Now, when the police first went in here around 10 minutes ago, there was an almighty rush up these stairs, so it could have been that the journalists fell over as a result of that rush up these stairs, but certainly an unpleasant incident, and they seemed quite shaken afterwards.
Well, Martha, do stay safe for us and continue this fantastic coverage, and we're going to come away from it momentarily. Again, we'll put the QR code on the side of the screen where you can watch it if you want to live. It's also on our feed on the Sky News website, and we will rejoin Martha at any even minor development from this tense position that we're in at the moment there at the university.
putting in a new skirmish line on the west side over here on this side. Look at this side. It's like got to be. I don't know. I mean, looks like some of the people on the other side have come to this side, but there's definitely at least 1,000 people over here. Copy, copy. Very good. Marcel, can they kill, I have Tamron Hall. Cool. Thank you, thank you. Welcome back as you join us live on ABC7.com and our 24/7 streaming channels. Chris Christie up in Air 7 HD as we continue to follow the developments over UCLA, where a massive protest is indeed continuing tonight into the evening, and everyone is bracing for an encounter with law enforcement as they have been poised all day to confront this group and eventually end this encampment that's been going on. As you can see now, both sides of the encampment surrounded by skirmish lines. Just a little while ago when we left you can see that initial group of California Highway Patrolmen there on the other side of the barricade. That appears to have thinned out a little bit. There's a few less CHP and a few less LAPD, but on the west side of this protest of the encampment is a whole separate group that we've been watching all night long. Two large groups on both sides of the encampment, but this large group almost appears to have grown in size just in the last little while since we dropped down for a quick fuel stop. And now you can see there's also a new skirmish line that I don't think was there, at least I don't recall it being there a little bit early there on the steps of that fountain. Why don't we go ahead and let's do a full orbit, see if we can get like a full 360 view and check out the activity on the other side. You see that LAPD skirmish line, if I'm not mistaken, taking shape there. That was not there even a half hour ago, and it looks like there are a lot more protesters virtually surrounding that skirmish line of LAPD officers. You can see these are supporters who showed up late this afternoon to defend the encampment. These folks are not in the encampment. Well, actually, the folks you're seeing on this side of the ply wall are, it looks like LAPD has actually entered the encampment there. That was not there. This was, they are now behind the plywood for the first time. We are now seeing law enforcement within the encampment. I had a feeling that things had changed, and certainly it appears things have changed dramatically in the last few minutes. LAPD, of all agencies, is now within the plywood wall that was built. These protesters spent the better part of the day reinforcing this wall, and now law enforcement for the first time has made entry into the encampment. They have not moved forward beyond that staircase there, but they are within the confines of the encampment. And as we've been talking about, California Highway Patrol is the agency that we expect will be leading the charge in confronting this group of protesters and ultimately taking down this encampment. You see the skirmish line there on the east side. Again, it's thinned out there. There's a pretty heavy contingent of LAPD officers now moving into position, strengthening that lead skirmish line, at least the lead LAPD skirmish line. There's about 4 skirmish lines in total on this side of the encampment, keeping a good distance between the supporters who have shown up to defend the encampment and the actual encampment itself. About a dozen or two officers now walking across the field here, and looks like they're going to walk into that building. Let's go ahead and swing it back over to the west side, where it certainly appears things are a bit more dramatic, and the proximity between police and protesters are about as close as it's been the entire day. First of all, I did not expect to see. In fact, look at that. There's a couple of groups of officers here. They've almost formed a bit of a circle. There's a lead skirmish line there near the staircase, and then a whole nother line of officers. Let's go ahead and try and count them. It looks like they have some less lethal weaponry there. And I would say about 24 officers that are now face to face with these protesters. That would explain some of the yelling that I heard on some of the live streams there. We're getting a better aerial view of what has happened here just in the last 30 minutes. Definitely a much different posture here, as LAPD is within the confines of the encampment, the Gaza Solidarity Encampment. If you hear anything on scanner 2, let me know.
Thank you, officers. We love you. USA! USA! USA!
Once again, LAPD face to face with this lead group of protesters on the perimeter of the encampment. You can see strobe lights being flashed in their direction. There have been reports of objects being thrown at them, although we are not seeing that, but it does appear that there was some tense moments as the LAPD made their way up the staircase and entered the encampment. You can see the skirmish line extending the entire 200-foot distance between Powell Library and Royce Hall, and you can see opposite those officers a solid line of protesters wearing mostly white helmets, white and yellow helmets, as they're basically face to face with these officers. These are outsiders. These are supporters who showed up this afternoon. They're now being kept at bay on that staircase. They're not going to be allowed anywhere in there. I think that's the primary job of that skirmish line right there, is to now hold the distance between the staircase and that large group of protesters right there at the leading edge of the encampment in front of the fountain. Looks like more people kind of gathering and this part of the encampment. You see folks converging on both sides along the staircase and by that fountain. We're talking about at least 1,000, a minimum of 1,000 people, by my estimation, there lining that staircase, and presumably they will be confronted if they try and climb that staircase. But it's a pretty small group of LAPD officers in the middle there, basically surrounded by protesters, far outnumbered by those protesters, but holding the line nonetheless. You can see a couple of dozen LAPD, we believe those are LAPD officers who are holding the line there at the staircase. Well, it certainly begs the question, what prompted LAPD to make their way up the staircase? And would they have made it up the staircase if they did not expect imminent action by the agencies in charge of this operation? I really wonder if we are indeed getting closer to some type of movement by the California Highway Patrol and the Sheriff's Department.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Senator.
Look at the size of this crowd. I am fairly stunned. I have been all day long as we've watched this crowd swell on both sides of the encampment. There are at least 1,000 protesters on either side of these officers. About 1,000 people along the staircase here, and another 1,000 people on the opposite side. Or at least hundreds on the opposite side within the encampment. We've estimated between 300 and 500 people in that encampment, and there's a whole nother mass of people on the opposite side of the encampment. We can go ahead and tilt up there. You can see people lining the barricades up there along Portela Plaza. It's got to be another at least 500 people, 500 to maybe even 800 people on that side of the fence there. Yep. What's about to happen, we don't know, but it is certainly clear that we are getting closer to something happening. LAPD more heavily involved than I expected them to be, as they have now penetrated the encampment. They are within the walls of the encampment, and basically holding the line here until orders are given to do otherwise or advance on this crowd. Probably more officers. It's going to take more officers, I would imagine, to do that. Almost certainly, in additional agencies. We know that CHP is the lead agency here, but we just don't see a whole lot of movement on their part there. We see that skirmish line where there were 2 skirmish lines about a half hour ago, 40 minutes now. There is now 1 skirmish line of CHP officers and 2 longer lines of LAPD officers. Again, that's the east side of the encampment there. That right there in the middle, if you're not familiar, is remnants from the counter-protest yesterday, where the group of pro-Israeli demonstrators were gathered around that movie screen. And there you see, in the center of your screen is that encampment. Show me the middle. What's going on in the middle of that?
No divestment, no commencement. Free Palestine. Free Palestine. Free Palestine.
Look at this. Look at this. The crowd is pushing forward, and those officers are face to face with this crowd. Here come a whole line of umbrellas. A lot more commotion now within the confines of the encampment as LAPD is now retreating. LAPD is now retreating from the encampment. They're retreating from the encampment. There are encounters with protesters. LAPD now scuffling with these protesters. The supporters who have shown up on that staircase, they are now fist to fist with some of these protesters as they try and make their way down the staircase. LAPD is retreating from the encampment as the crowd has converged on at least 36 officers who are apparently holding that skirmish line. That skirmish line is not holding, and those officers now retreating as they are being pushed out completely out of the encampment by no less than a couple hundred protesters on the encampment, within the encampment, within the confines of that plywood wall. Officers just making their way to safety. Shame on you! For sure. But whatever was accomplished is reversed as LAPD is retreating from that encampment. There's somebody taking down, LAPD taking somebody down there. With at least one protester. They were being pushed around at the bottom of that staircase. LAPD taking somebody down, now forming a new skirmish line at the bottom of the staircase. There was an encounter there. Somebody might be hurt there, but at least it looks like somebody's being detained.
Earning a bachelor's degree doesn't have to put your life on hold. Not only does WGU have a generous transfer policy, but you get to complete coursework whenever works best for you. Study and take tests on your lunch break, after the kids go to bed, or with your morning coffee. Learn more and get started at WGU.edu.
Appears to be cheering. I mean, they feel that they have accomplished something as LAPD has been forced to retreat from the encampment. They made their way down the stairs, encountering a bunch of protesters and supporters of the encampment, and now you can see them detaining one person who is being walked away in handcuffs. This is just really a recipe for disaster here. I mean, what has changed that prompted LAPD to make their way up the staircase in the first place? We'll stick with this person here who's being walked away. What prompted LAPD to make their way up there? I wish we were here when it happened, but I just can't tell you how that happened or what prompted that. You're looking at a protester who tried to shove some police officers as they
Better
made their way
allergy
down the
relief
staircase.
for better boyfriend. Live Claritin Clear.
You can see a line of LAPD officers now just beyond that person, and they extend pretty much across the lawn, but they have retreated significantly in relation to that staircase, where now there is a whole group of people that are blocking access to the staircase, and folks all the way up the staircase into the encampment. Yeah, I know. It's frustrating.
Let's go back. Yeah. We're going this side, this way.
Now that skirmish line is dissipating as the officers march towards the edge of the quad here. Let him go. So that person has been let go. A group of officers now fully disengaging and going back to their base, wherever that is. You can see them now.
My name is Hero. Everybody call me Tokyo Hero.
Tattooing to me was like
pulled back. Yep. They're still standing back there. Yeah. Wait.
And that move so quickly. Illegal fentanyl has made its way into the drug supply. It only takes the tiniest amount to cause a fatal overdose. A fraction of a raindrop, or 3 grains of salt.
Like that side of the crowd is actually
Know the dangers.
dissipated a little bit. I think a lot of the folks on Portela Plaza there at some point made their way to the opposite side of the encampment. And I think that's why it looks like that crowd on the west side looks so much larger than it did a little while ago. It certainly appears that that's what's happened. And we've seen some shifting in the crowd throughout the afternoon, and I think that's basically what's happened here. We're still talking about approximately the same number of people overall, in excess of about, I would say, 2,000 people or so, in addition to the encampment itself. But you can see the crowd that's been hanging around the staircase all day. Well, basically, that's what we have now. You see LAPD tried to make their way up there. They've been forced to retreat. They've been completely outnumbered after actually penetrating the encampment itself. And now hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people all the way up that staircase. And you can see the crowd of defenders who were face-to-face with the skirmish line of LAPD officers within the encampment. Well, all of them have now retreated as well, further inside the encampment.
You'll hear your classmates. You'll hear the people that this university is saying are just disrupting. We're not disrupting, we're fighting for our lives. We're fighting for humanity. We're fighting for everybody's right to exist. And we're proud of that. So I just want to say we just improvised a little bit, splitting the group in two. It was pretty successful. I've never seen that happen so smoothly in my life. Easy. So if you're still on this side, it's better to have us a little bit closer together. So if you are on the grass and want to move a little bit closer to the stairs, I think we have room. Let's build the stairs. Let's show the university that we're here by the millions.
Yep. What I tell you.
So one more time.
Told.
A little bit far in the crowd. I want to join us to give us all closer to the stairs. Let's build the gaps.
You do some more of it.
Again, beautiful logistical operation. We got each
Oh,
other.
well, I figure we'll burn one more bag. What do you think? Do a swap?
Next, I wanna invite to the mic a rep from the UC Divest Coalition, the coalition that has been fighting so that our tuition dollars are not going towards war, not going towards the destruction of our planet. Give it up for a big fight, a fight that seems unwinnable, but that we're fighting for. So, Divest Coalition for y'all. You hear many who actually don't know that. But UC Divest is not just student organizations, it is also campus organizations, it is also off-campus organizations. Workers are welcome to join UC Divest too, you know. And we want to
Hercules brushless power tools. Power and performance at the perfect price.
Are depending on you to defend our delicate democracy. And with that, I yield the remainder of my time to the ranking member.
Oh, I don't know there's much time left, but thank you for that.
So what they've been doing is they've been running around the south side of the library, switching sides depending on the posture of the skirmish lines. And I think the latest group made their way from that Portola Plaza around the buildings and then converged on the steps. So I think, I don't know, what would you say? I would say at least 1,500 people. start treating somebody. Let's go back to the top.
Having Granger as a partner, they make it very easy for us to keep our events safe.
Where is this? Where are you looking? I'm sorry, I looked away for a second. Got it. Got it. Okay. Very good.
Are you all in good company?
At least, not to mention the several hundred that are actually within the encampment in the confines of those plywood walls in those tents. You can see a couple hundred people there just on the perimeter of that barricade where there are separate skirmish lines separating that crowd from the encampment. You can see CHP closest to the encampment, 2 lines of LAPD officers behind them. But it really appears to be a pretty static situation in general, aside from this little episode where LAPD made their way up the staircase into the encampment and then was put in a position where they were surrounded and were forced to retreat and encountered a little bit of resistance as they did so. But it did appear that one person may have shoved an officer. Somebody was reported to be hurt, and it looked like paramedics attended to that officer, but that gurney is empty and it looks like everybody's okay down there by the activity center. And now a separate skirmish line has been established there. What we are not seeing here, folks, is the numbers. We don't see enough law enforcement in place yet to make any kind of an action to advance into this encampment. The anticipation was that there would be hundreds more officers on the scene once California Highway Patrol gave the go-ahead to move in on this so-called Gaza Solidarity encampment there at Royce Hall. But what we are seeing here is that upwards of a couple thousand people have shown up, outnumbering law enforcement in huge numbers and providing a real buffer for the folks who are residing inside the encampment. This is an encampment that has been reconstructed throughout the day, heavily defaced, heavily vandalized Royce Hall, now sealed off with debris and all kinds of makeshift materials by the folks in the encampment. There are hundreds of tents established with different specialty items in each tent, hygiene, PPE, makeshift weapons such as we've seen fire extinguishers, all kinds of defense, shields, gas masks, you name it. They have come prepared for a confrontation. And it doesn't appear that they're going to get the confrontation that they were looking for or that they were preparing for. So right now, the encampment lives on for another night here. We're coming up on the bottom of the 2 o'clock hour. Whether law enforcement is going to move in on them, whether they have more officers en route, we just don't know. It just is it's just not playing out the way we all were anticipating that it would. And it seems like everybody was prepared for a much larger advance law enforcement. But if this situation continues the way it has, I mean, this encampment will likely be right where it is tomorrow morning. We will see what happens here. We're going to stay here as long as we can, and you can see they've now moved some dumpsters to the bottom of that staircase. There are at least 1,500 people lining this staircase all the way up to the encampment there near the top. You can see just an incredible number of supporters who have shown up. Again, late in the day, this does not include the people who have been residing in this encampment.